My wife cheated with my business partner, left me for him, and then tried to reconcile when he dumped her. My ex-wife Kathy, 38F, and I, 38M, had been together for 19 years, married for 16 of those. We also have a 14-year-old daughter. About 6 months ago, Kathy decided to leave everything behind to be with my work partner, ex-work partner now, since he sold his shares and bailed after I found out about their affair. So, Leon, the guy I used to run my business with, was actually someone I worked with earlier. We became really good friends, so much so that we both quit our jobs and started the company together. We were business partners for the last 5 years. Turns out he was having an affair with my wife for 3 of those years. I stumbled upon some texts on Kathy's phone about 6 months ago, and that's how I found out. When I confronted her, she didn't even try to deny it. She actually seemed relieved and admitted everything. She said she was tired of hiding and just wanted to leave. I was completely shell-shocked because I had no clue she was so unhappy in our marriage. I was even willing to do anything to fix things. On the day I confronted her and she said she was leaving, I begged her to stay and said we could work it out. Looking back, it feels pretty pathetic, but I was just desperate. She got super annoyed and said the only reason she married me was because she got pregnant and didn't want to be on her own. She said she'd tried to love me for 16 years but couldn't, and now she'd found someone she truly loved. She wasn't going to let me hold her back and said that now that her secret was out, I had to just deal with it. I was heartbroken, mostly for our daughter. But Kathy didn't hesitate at all before leaving. She filed for divorce, and the process was straightforward because she just wanted out. She didn't demand any settlement or alimony, and the division of assets was fair. Within a couple of months, the divorce was finalized. I eventually realized that trying to make it work after all this was pointless. After we filed for divorce, I confronted Leon. He apologized and said he wanted to tell me a long time ago but didn't know how. Within a couple of weeks, he resigned and mentioned that he and Kathy were moving to Boston. Kathy had landed a fantastic job there, and Leon's cousin also lived in Boston, so he could work with him. Leon sent me an email explaining everything, and that was the last we ever spoke. The last time I saw Kathy was 2 months ago when our divorce was finalized. It's been tough for my daughter and me, but we're managing. At least I still have my business to keep me busy, and I want to give my daughter the future she dreams of. Then, about a week ago, something unexpected happened. Around 11 p.m., someone started ringing our doorbell and knocking frantically. My daughter was already in bed, and I was finishing up some work. We both rushed to the door and saw it was Kathy through the window. My daughter didn't want me to open the door because she's been really upset with her mom. Kathy has partial custody, but made no effort to stay in touch with our daughter. Plus, the whole cheating thing doesn't sit well with her. Their relationship is pretty strained right now. But I thought if Kathy showed up at our door at such an odd hour, it must be something important. I decided to let her in. Instead of coming inside, she started yelling at me from the doorstep, saying she was going to file a lawsuit and make sure this went to court because she wanted what she was owed. I was totally confused and had to ask her to slow down and explain. She was still furious and accused me of hiding Leon's true nature from her as a form of punishment for cheating. She then pulled up her sleeve and showed me a spot on her arm with a Band-Aid. I guessed Leon must have done something, which shocked me because he'd never lost his cool in front of me. Kathy said they'd been fighting a lot since moving to Boston. She thought Leon was just adjusting to the new life. But even a month in, things were still tense. He blamed her for ruining his life because he had to leave the business he worked so hard on and now had to work with his cousin, who constantly undermined him. He felt it was all her fault for revealing the affair before he was ready. They fought every night, and the night before she showed up at our place, Leon got so mad he threw a vase at her. She tried to dodge it, but it still hit her arm and cut her. Up until then, he had only been verbally abusive, but this time things went way too far. That night, she left the house and caught the next flight to talk to me about it. She told me that Lion hadn't even bothered to contact or apologize after she left, which made her even more upset. She also said she was blaming me for all this because she thought I knew about his abusive behavior and had hidden it from her to punish her. She thought it was super cruel of me, especially since she had done me a favor by not fighting for anything during our divorce. She felt I hadn't had her back to keep her safe, which she found really stupid. Honestly, I had worked with Lion for a really long time and only knew him in a professional setting. At work, he seemed like a different guy. I never dated him or knew much about his dating life, so I couldn't have possibly known about his abusive side. Her accusations just didn't make sense, and I was pretty annoyed by her attitude, acting like I owed her something. I tried explaining that I had no clue about any of this and apologized for what she was going through. But I also told her that ultimately it was her fault, and threatening me with lawsuits wouldn't change that. We started talking in circles, and then my daughter, who had been quietly standing by the door, interrupted us. She told Kathy to go away, which took me and Kathy by surprise. Kathy snapped back, telling her to shut up and go to bed since she was too young to understand. But my daughter refused. She stood her ground and told Kathy that she had no right to talk to me like that after everything she put me through. She reminded Kathy that ever since I found out she had cheated, I had been heartbroken, while Kathy just moved on with her life. My daughter also pointed out that Kathy hadn't even bothered to visit or keep in touch because she was too busy with Lion and her new life. My daughter told her she had failed as both a wife and a mother and had no right to act like the victim in a situation she created. Hearing my 14-year-old speak like that really put things into perspective for me. Kathy was speechless, and eventually, my daughter slammed the door in Kathy's face and went back to her room. I could hear Kathy crying outside, but I didn't check on her. I felt it wasn't necessary after our heated discussion, so I went back to bed and tried to keep busy for the next few days. I was proud of my daughter for standing up for me. Things seemed to settle down after that. But then 3 days later, Kathy showed up again, this time with a lawyer, demanding full custody of our daughter. Luckily, my daughter was out with friends when Kathy showed up. I haven't told her about this new development yet, but I was incredibly pissed off. Kathy claimed that after our daughter spoke to her like that last time, she decided she couldn't allow her to live with me anymore. She tried to say the reason she didn't keep in touch after I found out about the affair was to avoid a drawn-out custody battle and not disrupt my life further. She wanted to leave quietly to make things easier for me, not because she wanted to get out of her responsibilities. Of course, I didn't buy it. I told her that I knew the real reason she didn't fight for anything during the divorce, let alone custody, was that she wanted to move on quickly with Lion. It had nothing to do with me, and I didn't need to feel bad for her. But she didn't care anymore. She wanted full custody now and was determined to get it. She accused me of ruining our daughter's perception of her by feeding her stories and teaching her to disrespect her mother. She claimed that the last time we met, our daughter was incredibly disrespectful because of me, and So I've been kind of encouraging my daughter's behavior, and now she knows exactly what to do. She came back to tell me she's planning to take this whole thing to court. I just told her to go ahead and slam the door because, honestly, I didn't want to waste my time talking to her anymore. But now I'm starting to wonder if she might have a point. I want to believe I'm doing the right thing, but right now, I'm not so sure about anything. So, am I the bad guy for not reprimanding my daughter when she was rude to her mom, my ex-wife? Update. 1. I've decided I have nothing to be sorry about. My daughter did the right thing by standing up for me. The comments made me realize just how dumb I was being. I mean, my ex literally cheated on me. I don't think I owe her any sympathy or regret. A lot of people in the comments told me to talk to my daughter beforehand, just in case Kathy, my ex, files for full custody, so she wouldn't be caught off guard. I had a chat with my daughter yesterday and laid everything out for her. I don't want to keep secrets from her, and she's already shown she's mature enough to handle these things. It does suck that she had to grow up so quickly, but at least now we can prepare for the future. We haven't heard anything from Kathy yet, but we're expecting something soon. Our daughter's 14, which is old enough for her opinion to count in court if it comes to that. If we can settle this in mediation, that'd be great, but I've made sure my daughter really wants to stay with me. And she does. She's made it super clear she wants nothing to do with Kathy, at least for now. She did say that maybe in the future she might consider reconnecting, but everything is just too fresh right now. She blames her mom for breaking up the family, and honestly, it's true. I don't want to be the dad who turns his kid against their mother out of pettiness. But in this case, there's not much for me to do. Kathy kind of did that herself. They used to be really close before the affair came to light, so this is a huge change. Kathy's obviously upset that our daughter is on my side. Some of you asked who told our daughter about the affair. It wasn't me. Kathy confessed in an email to our daughter a couple of days after she moved out, without even asking if I thought it was a good idea. Our daughter was very upset, but still wanted to talk to her mother. When I reached out to Kathy to let her know, she was too busy with the divorce and didn't think it was appropriate to discuss. She said everything she needed in the email and had nothing more to add. I tried convincing her to talk to our daughter, but she refused. After that, she cut off communication, and my daughter's perception of her mother changed completely. It's unfair for Kathy to blame me for this, but anyway, I've spoken to my lawyer, and we're ready to handle this. Update 2. A couple of days ago, I finally got served with notice for full custody by Kathy. My lawyer and I immediately contested it. We're meeting with a court-appointed mediator tomorrow, but get this, Leon, Kathy's current partner, called me today. I was surprised because we have nothing to talk about, but I answered. He asked me to send Kathy back to him because he hadn't been able to reach her and figured she was talking to me. I told him I had no idea where she was living, but mentioned she was fighting for custody of our daughter. I didn't do this to help Leon, just to be clear. I figured if he talked to Kathy, he might convince her to drop the custody fight and maybe even sign away her rights. I told him she was upset he hadn't contacted her and that he should make his move quickly. He had no idea he was being manipulated. So that worked out for me. I'm just hoping Kathy still wants to make it work with him when he comes by. My lawyer thinks this was a smart move since it could save us time and energy by avoiding court altogether. Update 3. So Kathy and I had our first mediation session 2 days ago, and surprise, surprise, it didn't go well. She didn't agree with any of our statements and claimed that everything felt like a waste of time, and I ended the session within half an hour. After she took off, I picked up my daughter from school and headed home. When we arrived, Leon was waiting for us at our doorstep. The poor guy looked like he had been through the ringer, which made sense after spending a few months with Kathy. I told him straight up that he had to leave because my daughter and I just got home and we wanted to relax. We didn't have the bandwidth for more drama. I had already helped him as much as I could. I couldn't go out of my way for the guy who had an affair with my wife. Leon broke down and said Kathy hadn't replied to any of his texts after their last fight, and he was clueless about where she was. I told him, just like before, I had no idea where she was living, and there was no way I could help him. He sat down on the porch steps, head in his hands, sobbing. At that point, I started to get really annoyed. This guy, along with Kathy, had wrecked my life. And now he was asking me to help him find her so they could sort things out? I sent my daughter inside so I could handle this. Once she was in, I told Leon he had to go because I was completely done with both of them. For good measure, I gave him Kathy's parents' contact info and told him to reach out to them if he couldn't get through to her. But he had to leave us alone. I told him that he and Kathy had ruined my life, and I didn't want to see him lurking around ever again. He tried to apologize, saying he didn't mean to hurt me and had fallen in love with her. But I wasn't having any of it, so I stayed silent. And eventually, he left. I'm just so exhausted and confused. I don't even know what I'm doing with my life right now. I'm hoping and praying that Leon and Kathy can make things right, for my sake if not theirs, so they'll leave me and my daughter alone and we can move on. At this point, I'm numb and can't wait for this to end. Update 4. Hello, hello. So, a couple of days ago, Kathy ended our mediation sessions and said she wanted our situation to go to court. That wouldn't end well for her, and we all knew it. But I guess she was in denial until now. Anyway, she showed up a few hours ago with Leon. I guess they patched things up. I didn't invite them in because my daughter was home and she was sick, so I told them to wait for me at a nearby cafe. I got my mom to come over to take care of my daughter and then headed to the cafe to talk things out. When I got there, Kathy and Leon apologized for everything they had put me through. I told them that it didn't matter to me anymore and just wanted them to get to the point and tell me why they called me here. They admitted they had screwed me over and weren't happy in Boston. Kathy missed our daughter, and Leon missed being his own boss. Kathy wanted me to agree to send our daughter to see her every weekend or every other weekend. Leon wanted to come back as a partner in the business and start a branch in Boston. The kicker was they wanted a decision in a couple of days because Kathy was told by her employers that she needed to come back to keep her job. I told them there was no way I was agreeing to any of that. Leon had already resigned and sold his shares. I had that in writing. I didn't trust him at all. Kathy's idea was ridiculous because our daughter shouldn't have to travel back and forth every other weekend just to see her mom. Kathy should have thought about that before moving to Boston. They started to argue, saying they were willing to compromise because they didn't want to fight this out in court. I told them the idea of winning in court was laughable, and the only reason they wanted to bargain in person was they thought they could manipulate me. I wasn't weak or stupid enough to fall for it. I only met them to put an end to this. That shut them up because they knew they wouldn't win in court. I told them the most I could do was talk to our daughter about meeting Kathy whenever she visited. Beyond that, I wasn't doing anything. They could take it or leave it because I wasn't wasting more time arguing. Kathy seemed desperate, so she quickly agreed, and I left. I'll talk to my daughter when she gets better, but for now, that's where things stand. So, here's the deal. I'm not going to make her do anything she doesn't want to do. If she decides she doesn't want to see her mom again, that's her call. I'm not about to push her into it. Update 5. Hey guys, it's been a couple of months since I last filled you in. In my previous update, I mentioned I wasn't going to force my daughter to meet her mom if she wasn't up for it. After that chat, I had another talk with my daughter and told her what I had said to Kathy. She said she needed some time to mull things over, so I passed that message along to Kathy a couple of months back. Since then, we haven't heard a peep from her. Honestly, I have no clue if Kathy and Leon have managed to squash their beefs. I couldn't care less about that drama. From what I've heard, they're still an item and living it up in Boston. Good for them, I guess. At least they've been leaving me alone, which is a relief. Now I can finally focus on moving forward. The best way to get back at life is to just live it well, right? So, that's what I'm doing. I'm putting all my energy into work and making sure my daughter grows up to be a good person, basically trying to make sure she turns out nothing like her mom. Fingers crossed, I can pull that off.